Hello folks, I'm here at Scone Palace, probably the most ancient site in all of Scotland when we trace our steps back to kingship, all the way back to Kenneth MacAlpin. But I'm here today in search of Robert the Bruce and walking in the footsteps of Robert the Bruce. Now, the ancient abbey where Bruce would have been crowned king in 1306 is gone now. It was destroyed during the Reformation. But what remains, the Moot Hill as it was called, just behind me is the old gateway into Scone itself. What is left is the mound where these kings were crowned, and Bruce was in fact crowned twice just to make it legitimate. It was a strange kingship in a very troubled time. Robert the Bruce had just murdered his rival, John Comyn, in Dumfries. Edward I, Plantagenet, Longshanks, thought he'd brought the Scottish land to heel. He didn't even recognise it as Scotland. It was just known as that land in the north. He'd brought it to heel. But Bruce coveted what he thought were his hereditary rights as the last in the line of a Celtic lineage of kings. He had strong competition to that. He had John Balliol, who Edward had previously chosen, positioned as king, and then subsequently disrobed him, as it were. But to walk in these footsteps today with tourists all around, you really have to use your imagination to get your mind into the relevance of this place, the significance of it, and what actually happened here. It was a very troublesome time. There was friction between Bruce and his wife, Elizabeth de Burgh. She told him, she berated him, "You will be king for a summer only." Bruce's chances in reality were very slim. He had the might of Edward I England coming against him, and he had to win his battles at home. He had many enemies at home, and with the murder of a very influential family in John Comyn, the Comyns were extremely powerful, the Comyn Balliol faction. Bruce really was up against it, and he was destroyed just a few miles from here at Methven by Aymer de Valence, fighting under King Edward for King Edward. His army was absolutely decimated, and Bruce had to flee. He was defeated shortly after in an ambush at Dalry, and from then on, his army started to disintegrate. But what an occasion it must have been here. It says that King Edward flew into a fit of rage when he not only heard of the murder of Comyn by Bruce, but Bruce installing himself with the help of Bishop Lamberton and a few other nobles of giving him the kingship and anointing him King of Scots. Unbelievable what Bruce had taken on, and the great cost to his personal self, to the Scottish people, and to the land would be met on an unprecedented scale. But to walk in the footsteps here at Scone Palace, Edward I significantly took away the stone of Scone, or the alleged stone of Scone, in 1296, and he had it placed beneath his feet in a coronation chair made specifically for that in Westminster Abbey. And it was there until 1997 when it was returned to Scotland. But the accounts of the Stone of Destiny differ greatly from the original accounts of the stone, where it had carvings, it had circles, completely different type of stone. It was said to be a hard granite, and it was since proved that the Stone of Destiny that sat below Edward's feet in Westminster was quarried near here, a piece of sandstone. Personally, I don't believe it's the real stone of Scone. It's never ever been found. I'm not saying it's not likely to be found, but I don't believe that is the stone of Scone. But Bruce started his journey as king here. Bruce, as King of Scots, started a campaign that he couldn't go back on, and it ultimately culminated in gaining Scotland's freedom. He defeated the English at Bannockburn in 1314. Robert the Bruce was crowned King of Scots, but he did not have the stone of destiny beneath his feet. However, it takes a lot more than a precious stone beneath your feet to make a great king. And Robert the Bruce was to find out over the coming years the qualities and the hardships that would make him into a great king. It's very easily to be influenced by historians, authors, novelists, and just what general history offers when we delve into the history of someone like Robert the Bruce, or William Wallace, or the Black Douglas, or Edward I. I try to go, it's only my opinion, but I try to go with just what I know, rather than try to romanticize it. I'm not too keen on the expression, he was a man of his time, because people have different characters, they have different temperaments, and some people are violent, some people are very mild in temper, they're slow to anger, they're long-suffering, all of these things. So I believe being a man of your time is very inaccurate. I think when we talk about Robert the Bruce, we're talking about a power player. Now, what was he? He was a great knight. We know that. He was absolutely an excellent knight. He was a military leader. He displayed that, and he learned the hard way after the Battle of Methven, when he was duped by Aymer de Valence. He learned a hard lesson there, also to great cost to himself and great cost to his family in the oncoming weeks and months from that. But what kind of a man was he? He was a ruthless man. Ruthless to the point that he would murder his opponent or his enemy or other power players who threatened his ambition. He murdered John the Red Comyn in the altar in the church in Dumfries. Now, that much we know. He probably murdered many people. He certainly killed many people in battle that we do know about, and Bruce was a front runner. Bruce was a man to lead the charge, such as was his adversary, Edward I, back in the early days. But predominantly, Bruce came to fruition in the reign of Edward II, who was not the military leader that his father was. So Bruce was able to gain momentum, but he had to win a lot of battles at home. His fight wasn't just with the English. It was with many factions of Scottish nobility, and they had to be ruthless, and he was cutthroat about it. But he was also a charismatic man. People flocked to him. People fought under him. He was able to gather support, and he was able to instill belief in people of the concept of Scotland being an independent country and him being a great king. And by all evidence, he was a good king. He was a very good king. Scotland prospered under him. The English did not invade again as long as he was alive. And so he was a very successful king. But what it took to be a king, the price, the cost, and the dogged determination, but also the risk, the great risk to his own life, because Bruce, had he been captured, would have died a traitor's death. There's no two ways about that. But he eventually, he got good support. People did love him. People did fight for him, and people died for him. And so he is known as one of our great kings. And It's easy to read Nigel Tranter or Robin Young or any of the novelists or historical accounts in Robert Bruce, but to get to the core of the man, we need to look at the dispositions, we need to look at the behaviour, we need to look at the ambition and form our own opinions. But Bruce had and used everything it took to get what he wanted. And he did get what he wanted, and he left a legacy, and he left a very powerful part of Scottish history for us to walk in his footsteps, to visit places, to drink, savour, and something to be proud of.